What's going on, guys? My brother and I didn't get a chance to record last Friday to recap the Leafs presser and the first couple of games from the Panthers Bruins series because of work reasons, and we had a lot of stuff going on. But I decided today, I had a bit more time today to record and kind of go over the what's gone down the last couple of games between the Bruins and Panthers. I know a lot of fans have been following. There's a lot of drama. And so I'm going to start with that first and talk a little bit about, especially the last two games, and unpack a lot of the criticism and the complaints that there have been from Bruins fans and from a lot of fans in general. And also on the latter part of the video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Leafs presser and my, again, outsider's impression of it. And also what I feel like a lot of the pundits in Toronto have been saying about it, and sort of share my takeaways, what I think might happen going forward, and how I interpreted the whole presser. So yeah, with the Bruins and Panthers, I just have to say, I'll start with the Sam Bennett thing. He punched Marchand in the face. Like, anyone who says otherwise is trying to create a narrative to try to protect Bennett. It was a fast play. I don't think he necessarily immediately meant to hit him as hard as he could or whatever in the face. I do think part of it was bracing himself. He braced his hands, but he moved the right hand forward once he had the contact and just happened to catch him. But there was a bit of intention there, probably. I think Bennett's that kind of player that if you go after him, he's going to hit back, and he's not afraid to play on the line. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, he didn't hit him in the face, or it was so like accidental, or he was just bracing himself. Bennett needs to say that, obviously, to avoid getting fined and avoid getting suspended, which at this point obviously probably won't happen. So is it a dirty play or not, or whatever? That's the part where I have an issue. I think Bennett's a player like Marchand who plays on the line, but I would argue that Marchand is a lot dirtier. It's a guy who does the slew foot, who does spearing. I mean, there's a whole history. I don't have to say it. He's known as a dirty player in the league. Now, that doesn't mean you don't respect him as a captain, as a winner, as a player. Would you want a guy like that on your team? Yes, because he's a guy who's going to go there and battle and instigate. But if you are that kind of player, and you kind of get your comeuppance, and you happen to go after Bennett, and that would have been interference. He was going to hit Bennett to try to hit him against the boards on the bench. So there was intention there to take him down. And if Bennett had gotten hit and not seen him, and gotten boarded or whatever, and hit against the board and not being hurt, both Bruins fans and Marchand would not have cared. So I have no sympathy whatsoever for Bruins fans or Marchand for that play. He went after the wrong guy. He would have never dropped the gloves with Bennett, which is the funny thing. Because Bennett would, destroy him. If anybody's seen Sam Bennett fight, he's not all there. And so for me, from that perspective, did Bennett get away with one? Probably, but I think probably would have gotten away with a fine, maybe a game at most. I don't think he would have been beyond that. I don't think he swung at the guy or went after him or whatever. He was trying to protect himself and kind of snuck one in. But anyway, I just don't have any sympathy, for Marchand or Bruins fans for what happened there. You knew what you were doing. And the other reason I don't have any sympathy, and I'll talk about the interference call from last night, but the other reason I don't have sympathy is, if you watch the series, the Bruins players have been the one mostly instigating. They have been the ones going after Bobrovsky and trying to hit our players. Frederick is out there often headhunting and sneaking punches and elbows and sticks. Brandon Carlo has been hitting people in front of the net, and Kachuk and ripping off his helmet and getting away with stuff. Pasternak just popped Lundell in the face just because Lundell tried to get a stick in, which players do every play when the play was called dead. Didn't even hit Swayman, and he got popped in the face. Bruins players have no control. They know that they're not as good of a team. They're frustrated by that, and I totally get it. The Panthers were a little bit like that last season because we were not as deep as a lot of the teams that we ended up beating. But I have to say, when we really watch it, Kachuk and Bennett and all these guys have been pretty mild by their standards in terms of instigation, in terms of fights. The Pasternak fight with Kachuk, I suspect, happened because of the hit on Reinhart. And they went after Reinhart again yesterday. And it's funny because Reinhart is not a fighter. He's not a physical player, even though he's not a small guy. but they know who they're going after, you know. And I know they try to kind of go after Bennett and Pat Maroon making a show of it, which is embarrassing for a guy like that to try to make a big show when he wouldn't even fight Ryan Reeves. Like, it's kind of embarrassing for Maroon to be doing that when he can barely skate out there. And I hope they keep playing him because I love when he's out there because we can go on the rush. He can't catch up. So, you know, when you have Bruins players and McAvoy and everybody hunting and hitting people and punching people in the face and getting their sticks up and just being frustrated and taking interference penalty, like Lindholm doesn't like to get hit and then goes and like completely levels a guy with no puck around. And then you want sympathy? Like, no, I have none. And the Panthers, by my standards, haven't been dirty. And haven't like try to actually instigate or try to do anything. Like Mikla, Kulikov, all these guys are capable of wiping everybody out. And they haven't even tried to do that. And they haven't responded to the instigation, which is what I appreciate about the Panthers. And it's why we've gotten so many power plays. So I have to say, it's really actually frustrating for me as a Panthers fan to watch this and then get this narrative like the Panthers being dirty or the Panthers being this or that when your team is so frustrated, are acting like children. When that goal happened and interference goal after that, you totally lost your composure. Your team didn't know how to control yourselves. We were down 2-0 and we were just did not lose our composure, kept playing, kept going, and then we were able to win. That's how you win in the playoffs. The Bruins like completely lost their minds, started taking penalties, started complaining. Montgomery, she set a better example. You know what Maurice said yesterday during one of the interviews in the first period? The reason he's not yelling at the refs, because then the players start yelling at the refs, and then he gets all out of control, and he doesn't want any of that to be happening. You got to focus on the game. Montgomery's out there complaining, crying, whatever, screaming, doing all this stuff, doing all this show. So always seems to be super sour or whatever. And then that passes down to the players. Swayman is like hitting Kachuk and then telling him to come. Like, it's embarrassing, man. Like, you're trying to do all that show in front of your fans because you're just not good enough. And like, as a Panthers fan, even though I respect the Bruins and playing hard and all that, I just think it's embarrassing. Like, go out there and play forecheck, actually shoot the puck, like actually try to win. But you're not doing that, and you're getting embarrassed, and you're getting outshot, and you're getting dominated, and you're getting out hit actually in a lot of the games, and you might go out in 5. And so, you know, that's my whole thing. Like, the Leafs are the Leafs, and you got through them in 7, almost choked. And in the regular season, you were overtime merchants and should have probably been a wild card team. And it's showing now against a solid, really good team like the Panthers. So anyway, I'm just pissed. I have. You know, I listened to all the podcasts yesterday, all the Bruins fans and, you know, all the after the game shows and, you know, people reading the rules and people complaining about Bennett and this and that. Like, your team doesn't want to really forecheck and actually go to the net. Your team doesn't want to shoot as much. Bob letting us off one yesterday. Otherwise, you would have lost 3-1. And so, yeah, man, I just watch the game. Watch the game. Your team is the one looking for shit. Like, we're just trying to score. We're trying to win. And we're trying to move on. So if you go after it and you get hit back, if Pasternak wants to act tough and like hit Lundell dirty in the face yesterday, and then actually when he goes in a fight, he gets popped, that's what you get. That's what you get. So can't complain. If Carlo gets smashed tomorrow, like, you can't complain. He's been hitting people in front of the net all freaking series, getting away with it. Only got like 1 or 2 penalties. He's been getting super away with a bunch of stuff in front of the net. Yes, they got away with taking Kachuk's helmet off again. So anyway, I have no sympathy when you play like that, man. No sympathy whatsoever. And I love Maurice. We have Gadjevich, which we could put out there to fight Maroon and probably would knock him out because Maroon is actually not a great fighter. And he's not doing that. He could put Lombard out there, who choked Frederick last year when Frederick was also being an instigator and trying to play dirty and choked him out. And then everybody in the Bruins were complaining. Like, yeah, you want to mess with the guys? We have guys that can like mess you up. We're not even playing them because we're trying to win. We're putting Okposo out there, who had a hell of a game yesterday, even on the first line when Reinhardt went out. We're playing Stenlund out there. We're playing Lawrence, who's skating really fast and hard and doing clean hits all over the place. That is the difference in the series. And you can make your own narrative and see it however you want, but until you kind of change that style, you're not going to win. And think about your team. You made it to the finals in 2019, but outside of that, since winning the cup back in the day, like over a decade ago now, you keep falling short because your style, you're known for like a physical, dirty team and not necessarily for a team that has enough to win. So anyway, that's where I'm at. No sympathy whatsoever. I'm done with this team. It's frustrating, trying to act tough. And then when you get hit back, it's all about complaining and crying, including your coach. It's embarrassing. Joe Montgomery should do better, should know better. I don't want him as a coach. I wouldn't want him as a coach after what I've seen the last 2 years. You can say whatever you want about the regular season and whatever in the defensive system. You got Swayman, you got Ullmark. That's why you're here. Keep them both if you want to be a playoff team next year. Anyway, Swayman too after the game yesterday. So I'll talk about the interference. You can interpret however you want. If I were the Bruins, I'd be pissed because you always want to root for your team. And it looks bad. But what Bennett did to Coyle is not a cross check. Bruins have gotten away with way worse than that in the series, including also the Panthers in other plays, and that has never been called. That was a push. Look at all of the angles. That was not a cross check. He pushed them to try to get positioning on him, which defensemen, Carlo and McAvoy, do all the time, wiping people out in front of the net and get away with it all the time. And those are actually more penalties and take away chances for the Panthers. Same thing in every playoff game. So for me, it's not a cross check. If you think that's a cross check, you're just like blinded by your frustration, whatever. That was not a cross check. Second of all, if you look at the overhead angle, when Bennett touches the puck and has finally the puck, Coyle still hasn't even hit Swayman, and Swayman was already out. So you can create whatever narrative, even if you want to say to take the goal away. I mean, Barkov still would have probably tied it with that beautiful goal, but and again, Bob let in a very soft one, but the game was trending the Panthers' way. It probably would have won it and closed it out anyway. So anyway, I have no sympathy for that either. We've had a lot of stuff go against us in the playoffs and otherwise against the Panthers for the last few years. So when the breaks go our way, Maurice last season in the playoffs, the Panthers got called for so many penalties, so many soft calls. I remember Forsling got called for like a trip that was not a trip at all. They didn't even touch the guy. So we've been on the other side of that. So to me, this one, I can see why the league decided actually Swayman wasn't going to make the saves, and there was no contact yet with Coyle when Bennett actually had possession of that puck to shoot it and tap it in, and I think he would have tapped it in anyway. So anyway, that's my take on it as a Panthers fan. Easy to say. My brother and I were texting when it happened, and we were like, we're happy it's Bennett who scored, but then we saw it and we saw they might call this back just because those kinds of plays, they try to play it safe. But I'm glad that they stuck to the actual interpretation of the rule and said, hey, there was no contact yet. The goalie wasn't going to make the saves. So it's a goal. So yeah, you can play it by you want. And that's okay as a fan if you were mad about that. But you should be madder about the fact that you had 18 shots in goal. And now on a very crucial game where you had to win, you had a 2-0 lead and you gave it away. And then you started taking a bunch of penalties. So which tired the people out and wasted time on the clock and all that stuff. So anyway, that's where I'm at, man. I've gotten passionate about this series, even though we're up, just because of the narratives and all that. So yeah, I'm kind of done with the Bruins. Like you guys need to sign some people, make some changes who want to compete again, because this team isn't going to win, especially in the constructor. And I don't think Jim Montgomery is a good playoff coach. I think he got away with one against the Leafs because the Leafs are a train wreck of their own and shoot themselves in the foot. But the Leafs obviously are a better team and probably would have won if they just had better coaching, a better structure, and their top guys were healthier. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that series. We'll see what happens tomorrow in Game 5 against home. The Panthers can take it easy, but if they come out super hard, I hope they put it away. And again, the Swayman after the game saying, like, I just stick to the facts. I was impeded from making the saves, and you kept saying the same thing, can say the same thing. I mean, there's a part of me after a while where it just, again, feels kind of embarrassing when a guy's like trying to taunt, Kachuk and hitting him and all this stuff and trying to act in front of the crowd because, again, you want to put on a show and look tough and get the fans to like you. And I know Swayman's a hell of a goalie, so I'm not saying that. But again, when I see a goalie just saying, I stood too fast, I was impeded from making the save, I'm like, were you impeded when Lundell snuck one over your right shoulder? Were you impeded when Barkov weaved against everybody and just put it right over your pad? Like, you weren't. You weren't on the other ton of goals when we got you chased out of the game. So just a little bit more respect, man. Don't be such a crybaby. Anyway, I lost a little bit of respect from Swayman last night for Swayman last night when he just seemed so like sour about that shit. Like, your team stunk, hold them accountable. Anyway, that's my take on the Bruins-Panthers. Come at me, whatever, Bruins fans. I don't care. I hope we beat you in 5. When it comes to the Leafs presser, so this is for the folks who might be interested in that. It's interesting because I try to watch it. I'm not gonna lie, as an outsider, it was a bit boring. They didn't say much. There's a lot of like presser speak. I know Pelly came in to talk about good isn't good enough and all that. Which you need to hear those things. Like you have to But the guy doesn't know shit about hockey. Like, you could tell he's just not, he's been there for weeks. He's got to evaluate or whatever. He's a businessman. That guy was there for business reasons. He's not going to be the guy fixing the team at all. He's going to have to defer completely to Tree Living. You can tell he doesn't know anything. So I think he just came out there because I think they're trying to probably push Shanahan out, and they're trying to prep people. I have a suspicion that I do think Shanahan stays a number, and then I think he's going to go. I do think that you're trying to keep him in the short term to have a bridge year and to have another bullet for next season to be able to fire him if things go awry. It's just the way it works. And this is not just for the Leafs. This is how a lot of front offices work. This is why in Columbus, it took a while to fire their GM, even though they probably should have fired him 2 years before. You kind of just try to hang on to your bullets and then try to shoot them when you really need to. So now that they fire Keefe, that's one that they have. They may make some other changes, which I'll talk about. But anyway, I think Pelly was there just to signal, to put a face, and to know that if tomorrow, or next year or whatever, they fire Shanahan, they already kind of know that was coming, and that Shanahan is not like this final decision maker. And the other reason is I think they're setting up Tree Living. It looks like Tree Living, and Tree Living is a guy who comes from, my understanding, from like, I don't know if it's a family thing or whatever, but he comes from like the world of business and he understands all of that. So I think that I could see him being the kind of guy that those kinds of CEOs like as a president. And I could see him being made GM and president together, or just the president title being removed and just making him the one who's the decision maker. Whether that is a good or bad decision is to be seen. I think that this year I would give Tree Living like a B- in the moves that he make. And I'm trying to be generous because the Klingberg thing was not, I keep saying Klingberg. The Klingberg thing just was not going to work out from the very beginning, you could tell. And I don't think it was smart to go after that particular player, and especially for that money. And the Reeves, I still think it was a mistake. And yeah, some of the moves were not great. I think some of the deadline moves were better. I think Domi ended up working out for the most part for the regular season, though again, if it's on your first line, I don't think you can win with that. As well as he looked, he's a peripheral player. He's a perimeter player. He's not. Bertuzzi to me is more valuable, actually, even though he doesn't look as pretty. But if I had to choose between Domi and Bertuzzi for my team for the playoffs, I would take Bertuzzi any day. Because what he did with the Bruins, he can do on a team that's better structured. I just think the Leafs don't have that style. Bertuzzi doesn't quite fit on that team. Domi does because he's a dancer, and they're teams that need that guy on the third line, but not on the first line. So getting back to the presser. So yeah, I think to me at the end of the day, the Marner and Tavares thing, I don't think Tavares is getting traded. I think that would be incredibly difficult, and I don't think he has an interest in going right now when he has one more year, and then they can maybe either work out a cheaper deal or he can walk. But with Marner, I also don't think Marner is going to waive the clause, and I have a hard time thinking of the Toronto front office as one that would go, even Tree Living, I would go to Marner and say, like, we're not going to sign you. You got to go. Give us a list of teams, or this is going to get nasty. I just don't see that happening. I think it would create a huge distraction on the team, and I don't think that it's in their best interest to do that with Marner. The other thing is Marner, as much as he's gotten so much flack from the fan base, they get it every year. And I know that there's this sense that, but this year, it's like, just if you go back to the recordings, if you go back to the podcast, if you go back to what fans were posting last year, the Montreal year, when he was kind of the same, guys. It's just that there's this funny thing that happens in the summer where amnesia sets in. I mean, my brother and I talked about it before. And because there's always changes, right? There's always going to be a change. Dubas was that big distraction last year, and then Tree Living coming in. And then Bertuzzi and Domi were signing. Oh my God, here we go. Like, fresh new team. All of a sudden we got great and Stott and all this stuff, and we're going to win. Everybody's saying it was a deeper team. Easy to forget about the fact that the Panthers, who were not a good team last year in terms of depth, they were a good team in terms of playoff and forecheck, but half of our lineup was like AHL players almost, or old-ass players. And you lost in 5, right? We having a deep-ass team. You had Ryan O'Reilly in there. You had, again, we talked about that. You actually, I think, had a deeper team last year in the playoffs. And so, to me, I just don't see them necessarily getting Marner out because, one, I think that they might hope for that amnesia setting in again, since they have to hire a new coach. There's going to be a new narrative and excitement around that. They might bring Domi back, maybe sign him to a 4 or 5 year extension or a deal. And I know a lot of fans like Domi now in Toronto after this year and how he played with Matthews. So I think there's, and they need to sign a lot of guys. Maybe they can sign a defenseman like Montour or Pesci if they have the money, or if they want to invest the money in another top pair guy. And that might be enough, actually. If you get Berube or whoever's the coach, if you get Domi back, which will create a bit of excitement, and then you sign like a top 4 or top 2 defenseman with other pieces you need to kind of round out, and then you hope that Nice gets better, the back man comes back good, that Wall can have a better of training in the off season and maybe come back healthier, maybe sign a new goalie who's not a Samsonov, who was a punching back the whole year. I think those pieces are enough that by the time the season starts, maybe there's this narrative that Mitch Marner is going to prove himself on a contract year. Then you're going to start to hear that maybe with a new coach, Mitch Marner is finally going to play more physical, or maybe be more playoff ready. I'm telling you, it happened last year. I completely saw it. After the Panthers, you guys wanted to blow everything up, including Matthews, including Nylander. People wanted to train Nylander, thought that he could get the most value. Now he's like untouchable, So, I saw going from that to then all of, right after Dubas and right after Treliving coming in. And then the first day of free agency with Klingberg and Reese was not great. But then once you got Domi and Bertuzzi, that day, everything changed. I saw it. All of a sudden, everybody was excited. And everybody forgot about the core 4. Because now with these guys and all this stuff around it, we're going to be better. Maybe I'm wrong, and that would be pleasantly surprising. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to try to keep Marner for 1 year because he has value, because he does have fans. When Marner says that they are treated like gods, there's something to that. That's how he feels. And he's the guy who's been a punching bag. So if he feels that way, that they're treated like gods, he has a lot of fans. He still does, I'm sure. And the front office probably have treated him and the others like gods, the top 4. I just don't see that all of a sudden being destroyed. And I think they also have to be careful, because if you treat a guy like that who has a no-move clause kind of quote-unquote dirty to try to get him out, and try to do him dirty, that gets around the league. And other players might be like, what if they do that to me? What if tomorrow I'm the punching bag? Look what they did to Samsonov. If I'm a goalie, I don't know that I want to go to Toronto. And I know about the pressure and all that stuff. Samsonov was bad, guys. But a lot of those games where he was allowing bad goals, your defense was putrid. And you could see it. It was awful what you were giving up. It was embarrassing for a top team. And no one really wanted to talk about that reality and really hold people accountable. And then you get to the playoffs, and then, I know the defense was a lot better, but look at the Bruins offense. The Panthers are not even playing great defense, to be honest with you. And they can barely get 20 shots a game. So anyway, I don't think they would have looked that way. That defense would have looked good against the Panthers or the Rangers or Carolina. So yeah, just to say that I think that there's a chance that they do try to keep the core and try to give it at least another year, because at least Tavares comes off the books, and that might be an opportunity to get the cap a little bit more under control, break up the core 4 with Tavares gone, and then still hope that Marner, who's still kind of relatively young, and Matthews and Nylander can figure it out. Because it does make money in the regular season too. I mean, it just does. And, it can get you through a round or two. If you get lucky, you have the right pieces, maybe better goaltending, maybe a coach that does push them more. I just think that those guys, when you watch the other series that are more physical, they're just not willing to really go in front of the net and really battle as much up front. And that really, it's what it takes. Look how many of the goals that Panthers have scored have been by the net. Even Barkov's goal that was a break-in was right in front of the net. Bennett's goal. Anyway, if just the whole series, so many other goals have been scored on either tips or rebounds or in front of the net or power play. So I just don't buy that. I still don't. It's hard for me to believe that they're going to get rid of Marner so quickly, so easily. I don't think that will happen. And I think the longer it goes, the harder it will be to do. So I do think they're going to try buy themselves time by hiring a new coach, bringing in a narrative about culture, this year's version of snot from the coach, maybe bring back Domi or Bertuzzi or one of them, and then maybe really go after a top 2 or top 4 defenseman that people might get excited about, maybe a right-hand shot. Again, Montour might not re-sign with the Panthers, maybe Pesci. There are a couple other guys out there that you could look at, maybe Dumba, I don't know. But I think that they might actually go that route to try to get the fan base re-excited. And then the Marner narrative starts to kind of die down a bit. You know, you can still be critical of him. But if he comes in and has a great start to the season, and he probably will because it's a contract year, then I think people will forget right away. So I'm sorry to say that's kind of my own takeaway. I didn't hear anything that actually said to me, and I know that they wouldn't have said that they're going to move Marner or anybody, but I don't think you need to hear that. I would have liked to probably hear sort of more intentionality behind the idea that like this isn't working. We need true accountability. We need to make some drastic changes. We need to this idea of we're going to look at everything. That's as empty as you can get and as general as you can get. I actually don't want to hear that. We're going to look at everything. No. Tell me, you know, our offense is just broken. You know, our power play is broken. We were not really being able to do this and do that. I want to see a breakdown, like a smart breakdown of the hockey issues and the team issues and the culture issue. Cito did that when he traded Huberdeau and Uyghur and brought Maurice in. They kind of broke down what the changes were going to be. Maurice talked about, we're here to build a program. It may not lead to a cup right away, but we're going to build a program. And he was very specific about why the old Panthers way of playing, I mean, from day one, he said, that stuff doesn't work in the playoffs, so we're not going to do that. And it was a message to the players. We are not going to play more rush hockey. It's done. And the players resisted that for the first 2 months, and we were not very good. But you need that. You need that specificity, that commitment, and to be able to express it to the players, to the fans, and everybody. And, you know, you had to take a risk because the fans, Florida Panther fans, were not happy with Maurice early on because he was pretty in the regular season, which is what happened to you guys. Like, he's pretty in the regular season, but come playoffs, then you get swept, you know, or you get beaten. So anyway, that's one of my takeaways is that I don't know. I just don't see these drastic changes coming. I think the coaching, maybe a re-signing and maybe a defenseman, a big name defenseman, and then the rest, because of the cap, will have to be sort of smaller, cheaper contracts. Might get everybody excited. And, you know, there are a lot of free agent spots that the Leafs have to fail and not as much money because of the cap issues. I think between Nylander's and Matthews' increase, that wipes out the cap increase. So you're still kind of same as this year in terms of being cap strapped. Now, a lot of free agents, so you have more cap, but you Bertuzzi spot, Domi spot, all these defensemen spot, even Brody spot, you now have to refill them, and the contracts are going to go up because the cap is going up. So a guy that would have, like Brody, would have cost you $5 million. Like, you're not going to get Montour for $5 million. Like, it ain't going to happen. If that were the case, the Panthers would have signed him already. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, who knows? Maybe they will trade Marner for Saros, or I don't know, they'll go after a goalie or a defenseman. Maybe there's a trade out there. Maybe Marner is tired. But based on what I said, and you know, after in the presser for the players in the clean locker room clean out day, I just don't see it. And the last thing I'll say about that, the players. So I did watch the interviews with Riley and Matthews and Nylander and Marner during the cleanout day on that Monday. I think it was last week. And it's really mind-blowing to me how these guys still don't get it. And I don't even mean how they feel or how they, you know, these guys want to win. Like, I obviously, if you're a hockey player for the most part, want to win. And these guys are the leaders of the team, and they're incredibly skilled. They're competitive. Like, they want to win. They want to be the best. Problem is, they are so blinded by the acceptance of what has happened for the past 8 years on the team that they don't even still know how to tell the fans what they want to hear. Like, Matthews took no accountability. I know he was hurt. I know all that stuff, you know. But, you know, he's supposed to be one of the top 3 players in the league, top 5 players in the league, right? And for him tonight to say, I have to be better, that we all have to be better, this isn't working, like, whatever it is, like, give the fans some, like, accountability, right? And show it. You know, this idea that Montgomery said in Marchand after the loss game against the Leafs in the playoffs, the next practice, he didn't even have to run practice because Marchand ran it for him. You know, you kind of want a bit of that, you know, a sense that this guy has a bit of that fire. And if you're more of a quiet guy like Barkov, then at least you want to see it in the play. And that's what I mean in terms of, you know, I know that game 2 against when the Leafs played the Bruins in this series, first round series, Matthews had a great game. He did. And he scored the game-winning goal. And, you know, kind of similar to Barkov's yesterday and all that. And he had a great game. He did. And everybody said it's his best playoff game ever. What's funny is that he needs to give you at least 3 to 4 of those, given the type of player he is, because even more than Barkov, I would say, because he's a much better offensive player than Barkov. And he's, I don't think as good as Barkov defensively, but he's really good. He needs to give you that kind of play, like at least 4 games in a 7-game series, if you really want to win. And he doesn't do that. He's never done that. And you guys, I know he's an incredible scorer, but you got to demand more of the guy. He's going to be the highest paid player in the league. You got to demand more of him as a leader, as a player, because yes, that was a great game by him. But look at the way Barkov has played this postseason. Look at the game he had against the Bruins the other day, where he's the first player in like 14 years to have 4 points and 9 hits in the same game in the playoffs. That's Barkov. He's a meek guy. He's a quiet guy. He's not known for being a Kachuk, right? And he is the first guy in 14 years in the playoffs to have 4 points and 9 hits in the same game. Look at the game he had yesterday, right? Look at the series he's had. I think he has like 8 points in the 4 games. And it's just owning the Bruins right now with his play. Even though they're going after him, Marchand's trying to fight him. I mean, it's ridiculous what the Bruins are doing. But he's responding with his play. He scores a game-winning goal yesterday on a beautiful play. Not being afraid of the Leafs defenders going right down the middle. And he got dropped right when he scored. And that's what those guys are willing to do. The same way that Tarasenko got dropped in the neutral ice on the pass to Okposo that got to Barkov from that goal. Those guys are willing to take the hit in order to make the pass and score. If Matthews were playing the way that Barkov is playing right now in this series, he would be the greatest player ever. He would be talked about as like better than McDavid now. And that's, to me, where the accountability from the fans has to come in. Matthews, it's great. He's not the biggest problem with the Leafs. He is one of the problems. People talk about making him the captain. I don't know about that. I mean, I don't know that Tavares should be either, but I don't know that I want him as a captain. I think he plays hard. He has one great game here, one good game over there, but he can also be incredibly quiet. He can also be controlled in some games. If they go after him physically and really try to hit him, and the way that Pasternak has been hit, if you were playing the Panthers or somebody who's trying to go after you to try to hit you like that, you get destroyed. I mean, he also was a shell of himself in Game 7, physically on the boards, very meek. Didn't want to engage at all. And then he comes out and the way he talks is like, dude, do you really want to win? Like, and again, I know he does, but that's my impression, man. You got to hold him accountable. I'm just not satisfied. I wouldn't be satisfied if I were a fan with what he's saying, with the excuses that they come up with. Same with Nylander. Nylander's like, we were right there. We hadn't been hurt, and we still pushing to Game 7. The Bruins are barely a wildcard team. I mean, again, it's the OT points got them where they are, but they're not a very good team. You can tell offensively at all. They're really good defensively, and Swayman is elite, but that's what's gotten them here. But they should be beatable, And the fact that they took you to Game 7 and you still couldn't beat them with all the firepower you have up front, even with the injuries, that should tell you all you need to know. And the fact that Nylander thinks we're close. You're close to nothing. You haven't made a conference finals, man. You haven't even done that. Most of the Atlantic Division and all that, a lot of the Rangers have made it. Hurricanes have made it. Bruins have made it. Panthers have made it. Tampa has made it. You haven't even made that ever in the last 8 years with the team. So how close are you? Close to what? I don't think people get it. Like, I don't think these players get it. You're not close. Closest is getting to the finals or at least conference finals and making it a series against a really good team. So anyway, they haven't been able to beat inferior competition. Even as the Tampa series, they got outplayed and they happened to get through because Vasi wasn't that great. Anyway, to me, you got to hold Matthews accountable. Marner, I mean, he's the worst with a mic in his face. He hasn't been trained, or maybe refuses to be trained on how to talk. But saying that we're treated like gods, it's like, read the room. Not the time to say stuff like that. And even Riley disappeared in that series. Riley was not great against the Bruins. He to me really showed that he might not be a top pair defenseman. He might be more of a second pair D-man. He loves to play like a forward, but he's not great on. He's in his own zone, turns it over a lot, and tries to avoid getting hit a lot. And I know that Brody gets more of that criticism, Littlegram gets more of that criticism, but watch Riley very closely in his own zone. He gets rid of that puck quick to try not to get hit. And then he loves to go up a ice while these guys are in the back there taking grenades. He's like trying to rush up ice like he's a Nylander. So anyway, just to say, he also deserves some of the blame this year. I know he's been great in other times. And Nylander, he's good with the scoring, incredibly talented. Maurice yesterday, I don't know if he was trying to give praise or kind of a little backhanded compliment, but instead of Nylander, like he's the best at the perimeter play in the league, which is on the one hand, it's like, that's great. You do need that kind of skill. On the other hand, in the playoffs, I'd rather face that than like the people who are willing to just crash the net. So anyway, it was just kind of funny, but yeah, we'll see if they actually make changes, and if they don't, then I might record some videos about what I'm hearing from the fans, what I'm hearing from the podcast, what I'm hearing from the pundits. And I know it's not the same, and everybody is trying to make their money and create narratives, but if the fan base is all of a sudden excited at the beginning of the season and the core four is still intact, that's the sign that you've been once again brainwashed to, amnesia set in, new coach, new this, new that. But as long as that core is the leadership, unless somehow magically a new coach can really get them to play, and if Babcock couldn't do that, I don't know, Bob Berube or anyone else doing it. We'll see. It's a talented team. Maybe one year you finally break through, but I hope you guys get it right, because if you don't, then it would be pretty wasted to have Matthews and Nylander and all that talent, Marner too, and not even get to like a conference finals. So, all right, that's all I got for today, guys. Kind of more passionate, been holding it in for the past week, I guess. And I'm a Panthers fan, so of course my perception is biased. But leave comments, your own thoughts, talk to us, talk to each other. We'll try to talk about other teams as we go. We'll try to break down more teams in the offseason and going into next season. I'm sure next season will be a different slew of teams maybe making the playoffs. And I'll talk more about the West Coast as well. But for now, those series are kind of like 2-1, and we'll see what breaks open after today and tomorrow. And we will try to record this Friday to try to put some out. So we may be wrapping up some of these series by then. And maybe there'll be news on the Leafs end if they hire a coach. All right. So yeah, leave a like, subscribe, support us. We're trying to slowly grow the channel. Try to talk content, try to be as informed as possible as fans and as fair as possible. But yeah, it's a little bit hard when you're a fan of a team that's in the playoffs. You're going to be biased. So I'm aware. All right. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Yeah, Florida Hockey Bros. Peace out.